Welcome to this explainer. So glad you're here with us. Today, we're taking a fascinating journey straight into the anatomy of anxiety. We're going to literally look at trauma's footprint inside our bodies. Let's get right into it.
To help us out today, I want to introduce you to our protagonist. Let's just call him our stickman. Right now, he's sitting on a comfy couch in a completely safe, quiet room. There are no bears chasing him, no immediate deadlines, literally zero actual danger. Yet look at his expression. His eyes are wide, he's sweating, and he looks absolutely terrified. Have you ever felt exactly like that? A sudden wave of panic or just a constant buzzing dread when there is absolutely no logical reason for it? It's incredibly frustrating. You tell yourself to calm down, but your body is screaming that you are in mortal peril. Well, we're going to explore exactly why this happens and how trauma leaves a very real physical footprint inside our bodies.
Okay, let's dive into this because this distinction is an absolute game changer. Often, we kind of just lump all anxiety into one big bucket. But notice the difference here. Normal, or traditional anxiety, is generally forward-looking. It's our stickman worrying about a presentation next week or stressing over an upcoming bill. But trauma-based anxiety, that chronic, stubborn anxiety, operates completely differently. Instead of looking forward, our stickman's body is actually looking backward. It's heavily burdened by a massive knot of unresolved past trauma. The threat is long gone, but his physical body, it definitely hasn't gotten the memo.
Now, modern clinical evidence reveals something absolutely profound. Trauma actually physically rewires the architecture of our brain. It's not just a psychological hangover, it is a structural change. Think of it like a broken internal security system. A healthy alarm system turns on when there's a fire, right? And it turns off when the fire is out. But trauma essentially completely breaks the off switch. Just look at how overwhelmed our stickman looks, standing right underneath this massive, relentlessly ringing alarm bell. His early warning system is perpetually stuck in the on position, constantly scanning for threats that just aren't even there.
To really understand this broken security system, let's meet our stickman's brain staff. First up, the amygdala. He's the tiny, panicked guy in the control room constantly slamming the red alarm button at the slightest noise. Because of trauma, this guy actually becomes physically hyperactive. Then we have the hippocampus. He's the confused calendar guy. His job is to timestamp memories so we know they happened in the past. But under chronic stress, he drops all his calendars. Without those timestamps, a past trauma feels like it is happening right this very second. And finally, there's the prefrontal cortex, the logical manager. His job is to tell the amygdala to chill out. But in trauma survivors, this manager is essentially asleep at the wheel. The brakes have completely failed.
So let's see how all of this builds into a massive physiological problem. You see, our stickman doesn't just feel anxious in his head. His whole body is caught in a chemical storm. When his brain senses a threat, his body's stress management system floods with adrenaline and cortisol, prepping him to fight or flee. Normally, a feedback loop shuts this all off once he is safe. But trauma breaks that loop. His biological stress engine just keeps revving, completely out of gas, leaving him inflamed and endlessly exhausted. You can practically see him physically degrading from high alert to completely drained. It's exhausting just thinking about it.
So, the crucial point here is understanding something called safety lag. It's that incredibly confusing delay where his logical brain knows he is completely safe in his quiet bedroom, but down in his primitive survival brain, the adrenaline is still pumping. Why? Well, it's because of tiny, fragmented sensory triggers. Maybe it's a specific tone of voice, a certain smell, or even just a shadow that subconsciously reminds his nervous system of the past. His body is reacting to a past ghost as if it's a present life or death reality. It's absolutely no wonder he can't just relax.
And this brings us to a really staggering statistic. Did you know trauma survivors face a massive 2.7 times higher risk of developing unexplained chronic physical issues? We're talking things like irritable bowel syndrome, extreme muscle tension, or chronic pain. The trauma isn't just in the stickman's conscious memory. It is quite literally stored in his tissues and nervous system. The communication between his rational brain and his body's physical sensations gets completely severed. So when our stickman feels a sudden chest tightness from an old trigger, he misinterprets it as a present medical emergency, and boom, he spirals right into a full-blown panic attack.
This constant state of alert totally spills over into how our stickman interacts with the world. Trauma shatters our basic assumptions that the world is safe and that we are worthy, creating a massive intolerance of uncertainty. Just look at his body language navigating social situations here. On one side, he cowers behind a cracked shield, suffering from an intense fear of negative evaluation and social rejection. He's terrified of being pushed away. But paradoxically, on the other side, he actively dodges a trophy. He suffers from the fear of positive evaluation. Even when someone praises him, he is terrified because he secretly feels unworthy of it and fears failing to maintain their expectations. Honestly, it's a profoundly lonely way to live.
Often, these deep-seated fears stem from early relational trauma, things like childhood emotional neglect or unpredictable caregivers. Notice how our stick man is drawn much smaller now, visibly weighed down by a heavy, dark cloud. This represents the inner child, carrying an incredibly painful core belief. These early traumas teach the developing brain that emotional closeness is just plain dangerous. It forms a subconscious filter, a belief that says, "I am flawed and unlovable," or "people will inevitably hurt me." This inner wound acts as a constant engine for emotional reactivity in adult relationships, even when those relationships are completely safe.
So what happens when this fight-or-flight terror simply becomes way too much to bear? Well, you get a system overload. When the panic peaks, the nervous system brilliantly but dysfunctionally hits a massive override switch, forcing a freeze or collapse. Notice how he looks like he's glitching right now, almost floating outside of his own body? This is dissociation. He feels emotionally numb, detached from reality, or like he's watching his life from the outside. While it was a brilliant survival mechanism to protect him during the original trauma, today it prevents him from actually processing his feelings and keeps him trapped right in that anxiety loop.
And because of this massive biological disconnect, we cannot simply logic our way out of trauma-based anxiety. Conventional talk therapies often hit a brick wall because they only target the rational, logical part of the brain. But as we just learned, the panicked amygdala reacts way faster and hijacks the system before logic even has a chance to speak. To actually heal, we need a bottom-up approach. We have to start with the body itself. Therapies like EMDR help reprocess trapped memories, while somatic experiencing works directly to release stored physical tension. By working with the nervous system first, we can physically rewire those brain connections and finally quiet down that hyperactive alarm.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to look at our stick man one last time. If you recognized yourself in his journey today, I want you to take away this one absolutely vital truth. Your intense anxiety, that constant exhaustion, those unexplainable physical symptoms, they are not character flaws. They are not your fault. It is simply your biological wiring doing its absolute best to protect you from a threat that is already over. The alarm is just stuck. But the beautiful thing about neuroplasticity is that what was wired can absolutely be rewired. You have the power to reset that system. So, I leave you with this question. Your body has been bravely storing this trauma for a long time. Are you ready to take the first step to release it?